Test. Perfect. All right, so in order to do this, what you're going to have to do is subtract the before and the after. Now, some people will subtract the after minus the before and get 10. Some people will do before minus after and get negative 10. It doesn't really matter. Just be consistent. Okay, so just the only difference is sometimes you know with a positive number versus a negative number. That's the only real difference between the two. Okay, what I'm going to do for the purposes of this discussion is I'm going to do the before minus the after, so I'll be getting negative numbers. So negative 10, negative 15, negative 3. This then would be a positive 3, and this would be 0. All right, so now I got to find the mean of those values, right? So we're going to have to find d bar. So d bar is going to be equal to the average of all those, and then we're going to have to figure out what SD bar is. So that's the standard deviation of those values. So in order to do this, what we're going to do is go to our calculator, and we're going to try to type these in the way we see them. So stat, edit. We want to clear the list. We don't want anything there. Could have left L2 with the numbers in there. It didn't matter. But negative 10, negative 15, negative 3, 3, and 0. And then with that being said, we'll do stat, calc, one variable statistics center. And we'll get that the average is negative 5 and the standard deviation is 7.38.
Oh, I didn't put the 0.
Ooh, you should. I know sometimes we do it and you don't have to put the 0. Like in the formulas and stuff that we do, you don't have to put 0. But for this problem, you would need to put the 0 because it's a value.
It changed everything.
Yes, ma'am, it would. Okay. So we're just going to put that over there on the side. All right, so we now know that the average was negative 5 and the standard deviation is 7.38. Now, with that being said, notice that if you did the after minus before, and this was positive 10, this was positive 15, this was positive 3, this was negative 3, and this was still 0, then your average would be a positive 5, and your standard deviation would still be 7.38. Okay, so it doesn't make a whole lot of difference. Now, if it helps improve, that means that the after is bigger than the before, right? So if it helps to improve, then what we're saying is D or mu D, depending on which letter you want to use, it doesn't matter. You can use D or you can use mu D. They're interchangeable. Then what we're saying there is that that value is less than 0 in the case where you get negative numbers. In the case where you were getting positive numbers, you'd be saying that the D or mu D is greater than 0. Okay, so it doesn't matter whether you did greater than 0 or less than 0. It just really depends on if your number is negative or positive. Okay, you guys okay? All right, so with that being said, here we go. A is HO and H1. In my case, it would be that mu D is equal to 0 or that mu D is less than 0. Again, as an alternative, if your D bar is a positive 5, you would say mu D is equal to 0 and mu D is greater than 0. Okay? Bless you. The thing you don't want is for you to have a positive number here and then use this as your H1. That's the one thing that's really bad. Because you cannot test if something's less than 0 if the answer you got is a positive number. Like, there is no test in the world to go, hey, is this less than 0? What'd you get? Positive number. The answer to that question would be no, it's not less than 0. No test is really needed for that. Okay. Part B. Part B says you have to do a left tail, right tail, or two tail test. In this case, it will be a left tail test because it is strictly less than. And this area here is 0.05. This is a T-score where the degrees of freedom is, who's my degrees of freedom expert? Thank you, Thomas. Thomas, degrees of freedom.
In my case, it was 0.132, or degrees of freedom would be 4. That's one.
He's fired. He's at, in my very best Donald Trump impersonation, Thomas, you're fired. Sarah, you are the newly appointed degrees of freedom expert. This is the first time in the history of my class I've ever had to go to 3 different degrees of freedom experts in one semester. Thank you, McPhail.
You're welcome.
Sarah, degrees of freedom. N-1. It's always your answer to start with. And then you're trying to get all eager. In this case, Sarah, you would say it's Yeah, you only missed one day, but it was the most important day of the semester. It is 4 in this case. So going to 0.05 down to 4, you get 2.132. Don't ask me for a recommendation, Thomas. Part C. I got to know the formula. The formula is on that formula sheet that you'll be given. It's also on the sheet that I handed you earlier. It's T equals D bar minus, again, I think the formula I give you is D bar minus D. You could use D bar minus D or D bar minus mu D, either one. Divided by S D bar, which is the standard deviation, divided by the square root of N. Part D is T equals -5 minus 0 divided by, what was it, 7.38 divided by the square root of 5. Okay. Go into our calculator. We got -5. I'm going to live on the edge. I'm not putting in the 0. I know some of you are like, what a rebel. It's okay. I'm a professional. Don't try this at home. -5 divided by 7.38 divided by the square root of 5. And you get -1.51. Never mind the dead body that just appeared over there. Negative what?
Happens at this time every time we have this class.
I think it's Lee Jody's having dinner. All right, part E. Now, do you reject or fail to reject HO? We got to figure out where -1.51 falls. Well, before you can figure out where -1.51 falls, you got to know where 0 is. Where is 0? 0 is right down in the middle. So, -1.51 would be somewhere between 0 and -2. So we'll call that -1.51. It's not in the shaded area, so that would be fail to reject HO. What's wrong? All right, part F. If you fail to reject HO, again, I'm not proclaiming this as a statement of fact. I'm just saying this is so you can understand it. If we fail to reject HO, we're saying that HO is true and that H1 is false. Again, that's not entirely correct. I always worry about people who are watching this at home and going, oh my gosh, he's creating some kind of major violations, fire him. It's not entirely accurate, but for the purpose of your understanding, I think it's going to be helpful. If HO is true and H1 is false, do we support or don't support the claim?
Don't support the claim.
Don't support the claim. So, at a 0.05 level of significance, that clearly says level of significance, there is sufficient evidence to support, to not support.
I'm surprised you even wrote it. Because we're recording.
There is not, we'll get it right here eventually. There is not sufficient evidence to support, clearly support the claim. Well, that was your problem. That mu D or D is less than 0. Okay. Part G, you got to know the assumptions. That have no apparent abbreviations either, I'll point out. The population is normally distributed, and sigma is unknown.
What's a level of sign?
Significance,
There is not.
level of, okay.
These are
I mean, that's clearly support. I don't know what you guys cannot read about that.
Spirit.
All right, any questions on that?